Hello, listeners. Mallory Wilsey here, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network, and I want to take just a quick moment to tell you about another show on our podcast network that I think you'll love. Mission Admissions cuts through the noise in college admissions and recruitment. Host Jeremy Tiers brings a fresh perspective, packing each episode with straight talk advice, tips, and strategies from a mix of pros inside and outside higher ed. One of the things I love most about the show is how Jeremy often brings voices from outside the industry to share perspectives and practices that can be applied to the work that marketers and enrollment professionals like you do every day. You can subscribe to the show by visiting podcast.enrollify.org or just search Mission Admissions wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to The Hidden Gem. This is your host, Maya Dimishkovich, and today our special guest is Diane Burkett, the Executive Director of Marketing and Public Affairs at College of the Mainland. In this first part of this two-part series, Diane shares her journey and the remarkable growth College of the Mainland had experienced in recent years. We will dive into the importance of the strategic approach to marketing, the crucial role of a well-maintained website, and the value of a seamless student experience. We'll also explore strategies for managing public perception and the power of personalization. This two-part episode is like a mini crash course in enrollment marketing, packed with actionable insights and inspiring stories. Don't miss out. And let's get started. Welcome to The Hidden Gem, your go-to podcast that shines a spotlight on the strategic role of marketing and communications in shaping the future of community colleges. I'm your host, Maya Dimishkovich, CMO at Carroll Community College. Every week, I sit down with community college leaders and industry experts to unpack strategies that work. We'll discuss practical insights and success stories to help you elevate your institution's profile and achieve your strategic goals. Tune in to amplify your community college's success, one conversation at a time. The Hidden Gem is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. And let's get started. Welcome to today's episode. This is Maya, and I have a very special guest today. Her name is Diane Burkett, and she's the Executive Director of Marketing and Public Affairs at College of the Mainland. Welcome, Diane.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, Maya.
Thanks. What I thought we could do is maybe start by you sharing a little bit about yourself. What is your role at your institution? How long have you been there? And maybe a little bit about your organizational structure.
Sure, thanks. As you said, my name is Diane Burkett. I'm the Executive Director of Marketing and Public Affairs here at College of the Mainland. We are located south of Houston, Texas, down by the water. I always reference, we're pretty close to NASA. So if you're familiar with Johnson Space Center and NASA, we're down in that region, Galveston County. College of the Mainland is a mid-sized college located out of Texas City, Texas. And as far as my department is concerned, we manage quite a bit at this college. We touch every part of this college. And so it includes marketing, public affairs, internal communications, external communications, media relations. I'm also the public information officer and the college spokesperson. In terms of how our college or our department is structured, when I arrived about almost 4 years ago in this August, it was a very small team of maybe 5 people. We are going through, our region and our college are going through tremendous growth right now. Texas is growing significantly. Galveston County is growing significantly, and we are benefiting from that growth as well. And so we have grown as a team. The way our team is currently structured is we have a full stack web developer, and we have a creative services manager. We also have an assistant director of marketing, communications officer, and a communications specialist. And he also does all of our social media. And we are currently interviewing for another graphic designer as we are desperately in need of that. And then we will also be looking to hire a marketing specialist. So, and then we also have an administrative assistant who keeps us all organized and on top of things. And she is our rock and our anchor. So we have a nice little team, but we are growing as needed to meet the needs of a growing college.
Yeah, and I think last time we spoke, you mentioned that your enrollment has been growing significantly since COVID, almost like 11%, even more. And that's higher than any community college in Texas. And you also mentioned that since COVID, you had an increased focus on strategic enrollment marketing. So I'm curious, what sparked this shift to focus on strategic marketing?
Well, let me touch on the pandemic portion, because I believe that's something that we will continue to talk about as marketers and communicators for probably the next decade or 20 years. It was such an impactful time for so many of us in the community college system. Nationally, well, let me say in Texas, it wasn't uncommon during the pandemic that some community colleges were experiencing declines of upward near 20%. I believe ours peaked out around 12%, and we rebounded relatively quickly. So we've managed to stay ahead of the national average. And since the pandemic, we have actually experienced all-time historical record enrollment at this college each semester over at least the last 3 semesters. And we anticipate for this upcoming semester also. And to answer the other part of your question about strategic enrollment marketing, it's really a couple things. Number one, part of it is me. When I came to the college almost 4 years ago, I am a strategic marketer. That strategy and strategic marketing has been something I've done my entire career. I'm a little bit of a different bird, I say, than others, in the sense that my background professionally has been a hybrid of private sector, primarily working in software, which is a very fast-paced, outcome-driven industry, and then higher education. But I believe that the knowledge and skills I've gained from both have really kind of set me up to bring some successful and productive ideas to College of the Mainland. And so that was the first part of it. And I think the other part of it, to extend, what I just said about myself, that extends also to the rest of the leadership team, including our president, Dr. Nichols. All of us on the leadership team have a growth mindset. We also understand that community colleges, even universities, higher education in general, is not the same that it was 15 years ago, 10 years ago. Specifically, talking about community colleges, there used to be this whole, well, we're here and, we're in the neighborhood, so people are just going to show up and come. And that's just not the case anymore. The reality is that colleges are businesses, just like businesses in the private sector. Our students are customers, and we provide a service, and there's an expectation of service, quality of service, service experience that goes along with that. And you have to remember that. And the other thing is that 15, 20 years ago, yes, your community college was probably the most accessible thing to someone in your surrounding community. But today they can access any higher education they want from their home if they wanted to. And so they have options. It is a competitive marketplace, and you really need to set yourself apart, have a clear brand, have a clear value proposition, and really do an effective job of answering why a prospective student should choose you over others. And so we pretty much everything we do is through that lens, the primary lens being to provide an amazing service experience to our student, but then also to figure out how to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace.
I really like your mindset. It makes so much so much sense. And on this podcast, I've actually spoken to several marketers who came from a private sector and were able to turn the college around and bring so much expertise and different perspective to take the college forward. So it sounds like it's the case with your institution and your expertise coming in, which is great. And I know you mentioned that as part of the strategic enrollment marketing effort, you have identified 10 areas that you felt were important to allocate resources to and to focus in order for your college to be successful and to bring students in, retain them, and graduate. So I'm super excited to talk about each of them, and I have a list of them in front of me. So I was hoping that we can start with the first one, kind of talk about what it is, and then maybe what were you able to do in this particular area and what results did you see? So the first one on my list is treating your website as one of the greatest marketing and recruitment tools. And I know to many it may sound obvious, but if you look at community colleges in general, in many cases, our websites are not where they should be. So it makes sense to have it as one of the focus areas. So tell me a little bit about this particular area.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, your website is a digital brand beacon for everything you are and what you stand for. And the thing is that you have to consider when we talk about brand, we're not talking about just about logos or colors. Essentially, a brand is the perception somebody holds of your organization. It's the way you make them feel, what they think of when they think of you. And so that entails everything. And we're going to go through some of those different things today. But to your question, your website is absolutely critical to your success, not only for showcasing your brand, but it also allows you to share virtually, digitally, allows you to share with the prospective student what their experience at your college might look like. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. You can share stories. And I often say the storytelling aspect is probably one of the most effective marketing strategies you can employ because they don't want to hear from us lame marketers. I say that in a friendly way. They want to hear from their constituents. And I oftentimes remind my team that people like to see themselves through others. People can relate to others. When you share the stories, and frankly, students who come to community colleges are magnificent individuals. They are hardworking individuals and they've got stories to tell. Some of them have experienced tremendous adversity. There have been hurdles presented before them. Many of them, especially at our college, to be specific, are first generation college students. This is their first time navigating this for themselves and their families. And so they have stories to tell. They need to be able to share their experiences and their insights because I promise you, there are many other people on the other side of that video who are like, I'm going through the exact same thing. And this person has achieved tremendous success and they just gave me the roadmap for how they did it. And I can do that. And so that's really important to do that on your website. So brand, highlighting your student experience. Another way you can highlight your student experience is through a virtual tour. And I will touch on that a little bit later when we go through that trend. But we utilize a virtual tour and we did ours very differently. So we use the EAB UVisit. I'm very proud of the fact that we always try to think out of the box. Meeting individuals where they are and being successful in marketing is great. But at the end of the day, we're marketers and we're always trying to push the envelope and not just copy. And so we researched every college that uses this platform and how they did virtual tours. And we're like, we need to do something different. And I'll get into that in a little bit later, but we wanted to do something special for our community and our audience. And it's been really effective. And then also generating and nurturing recruiting leads. So we have our storefront. Your website is your storefront. It is at the top of your marketing funnel. So primarily, not always, but primarily when you have prospective students first looking into your organization, they are going to come to your website. They're going to look at the school. They're going to look at your program, your program offerings. They want to know what it's like to go there. What types of student activities do you have? They want to evaluate all those things. It's really no different. We're all consumers. It's no different than if you're looking to purchase a house and you go on to some of these housing websites, or if you're looking for a car, anything that is a major investment of time and finances, you're going to do your due diligence. And so they're going to come to your website. And so we need to be able to build a website as a college that can not only provide the information, make that information accessible, easy to find, but also give these prospective students opportunities, as I say, to raise their hand and say, okay, I'm ready to learn more. And what does that mean? What that means is that when they've done the research and they find what they want and they're like, okay, so what's next? Because remember, like I said, a lot of our students are first generation. They may not necessarily know, okay, I like this, I'm interested, I don't know where to go from here. So you need to make sure that you capture opportunities through forms. You can do forms, dynamic forms, downloadables. You can make sure that you have opportunities for signing up for information sessions, campus tours. There's a lot of different ways, meeting with enrollment coaches, scheduling a meeting with an enrollment coach. There's a lot of different touch points and ways that a prospective student can raise their hand. And none of those are really what I would consider heavy commitments. So you don't want to say, here, we need you to fill out this entire application, this entire form. We want to know your entire life history. No, they're still at the beginning of their consideration process. We just want them to raise their hand, whether it's about finances, meeting with an enrollment coach. Maybe they just want to see the campus. Just put those opportunities right in front of them, make it easy to capture. And that way you can grab that lead. And then from there, your recruiting team can then work their magic, meet the students where they are, help them understand, answer all their questions, understand everything they need to know, and then hopefully lead them to application and enrollment. And so there's just so many wonderful reasons why your website needs to be at the top of your priority list each and every year.
Yeah, I completely agree. The other thing I would add to what you mentioned is reviewing your website with a lens of your prospective student and using the language that they actually understand. So often I see colleges use jargon or abbreviations or even words that are beyond what students might understand. So just keep that in mind.
That's a great point.
Right. Small things you can do is just
small things you can do. Yeah, that's a really good point, Maya, because I remember when I first came here, and I experienced the same thing at universities. Is when I was first arrived, I was evaluating the webpage copy, especially when looking at the programs, and it looked like there was like an attempt to write a thesis. There's just so much information, and they were just throwing so much on the page. Degree maps and just everything. Requirements and this and that, and it was just so much. And if you just keep it simple and understand your audience and recognize, again, I always account for the one who's never done this before, who needs the most, who you don't want to overwhelm. So always account for that denominator, not the person who's going to self-select. I've been here, done that. I know what I'm doing, but always account for that first timer. If you go to a page and it's overwhelming, because it has so much content, so many links. The language is, very technical or very academic. It's hard to interpret. You're not sure what you need to do. It's just too much. They're just window shopping. And so we need to remember that there's always a way, as we take them through the recruitment process, that we can introduce these other pieces of information, but you just need to be thoughtful about that. They don't need everything up front. So I 100% agree with you.
And that kind of leads us to the second area in a way, and it's about seamless student experience. What are some of the things you've done to improve the experience of your prospective students coming to your college?
Well, there's a lot of things that we've done to improve the experience of our students. Our students already had a great experience, so I'll definitely preface it by saying that. One thing that's really special about this college is that it is so beloved by the community. Anytime you go anywhere in our community with a comm shirt or something, somebody is going to stop you without fail and tell you about their story, their grandchild's story, their aunt's story. That somebody always has a story. So with that being said, they wouldn't feel that way if they didn't feel that they were loved and well taken care of during their time here. But looking forward, we're really focused on the service experience. Let's look at the prospective student portion of it. There's so many different areas we can touch on, but this one's really important. And that includes the application process. When myself and my colleagues visit, including that of Dr. Nichols, we oftentimes reminisce about when we all started in college. Many of us are first generation college students or were, and many of us also started in community college, including our president. And I remember when I first started college, I did not have one single idea about what I was supposed to do. And I felt like I just aimlessly kind of wandered around trying to figure things out and patch things together. And it was very frustrating. And that still exists today. I think that sometimes we don't intend to, but we sometimes maybe overly convolute our onboarding process for students. And we really need to simplify that. And I think one possible reason that sometimes happens, again, unintentionally, is I think sometimes different aspects of our campus operations get siloed. And even if you're looking through the lens of a prospective student, I'm first coming in, I want to learn about the program, and then I need to learn about financial aid, and then you need to learn about all these different things. Each of those are kind of very independent, established areas. And so I think one thing to do that's really important is to journey map your current student experience as an organization, both administratively, but then also both with your students. You need to hear what their experience was like, and you need to do what's called journey mapping, where basically that means you plot out every touch point, every step you took from the first time you engaged the college until you enrolled in a class and arrived on the first day of school. And you need to plot that out. And what happens when you do that is it reveals maybe some pain points that exist that you were not previously aware of, that you're like, oh, I could see how that could be confusing for students. I never thought about that. And it makes it a lot easier to remedy those. It also allows you to see where prospective students might be bottlenecking in the process. And so maybe you realize through this process, oh, I never realized we had so many students starting applications, but when it got to, this step, they stopped moving through the process. And so it's a nice audit and it reveals a lot. Plus you get some qualitative feedback from students about what they thought and what their experience was. And then from there, your goal is to then intentionally design a service experience that is a tier 1 experience that meets and matches the brand and adequately and effectively represents who you are as an institution. Because again, like I said in the beginning, I think we all work in higher education because we love what we do and we want to contribute to something bigger than ourselves. But sometimes, things just don't always work out the way, we intend them to. So this allows you to kind of take control of that effort and to map out a service experience that is what you want every single student to consistently experience when they walk through the door. One of the things that was done was we created high-touch concierge onboarding experience through our Office of Enrollment Management. So our enrollment coaches or recruiters, you are assigned to one of them as a prospective student, and they take you through every step all the way up to the point of enrollment. And so could you just imagine back in the day when I said I was just kind of roaming around aimlessly trying to figure out what I was supposed to do, how nice it would have been had I had someone, just like when you've got the dealer at the car dealership standing at the front door waiting for you, and I'm going to help you with whatever you need. And if you need a lot, that's great. I'm here for you. If you don't, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to give you the tools you need just to make sure that you're successful. And if you need anything, I'm right here. I mean, just taking simple steps like that can make a significant difference, a significant impact on a prospective student's experience. And it's going to also ultimately positively impact your overall enrollment, because those areas where you maybe had pain points that you revealed through your initial assessment where prospective students were bottlenecking or falling off, you can now eliminate those. And so those are some of the things that we've done. And then the other thing is have to nail your application process. So once we get to the point of application, you have to nail that application process. It doesn't have to be that complicated. And so simplify that. One of the kind of niche areas where things can get a little convoluted is when you have specialty programs that have custom applications. So in Texas, we have the Texas Common application kind of as our standard format. But then if you participate in nursing or radiologic technician or dental hygiene, they have special applications. And so you need to make sure that you integrate a seamless process for your prospective students to be able to navigate that easily. And so these are just little things you can do. But I assure you, if you just do the work of starting out by journey mapping your current student service experience, it will reveal so many things. And these are just little things. You've already got the foundation. You have a team of wonderful people who care and are ready to do what they need to do. You just need to kind of figure out where those gaps are. And that's probably my top tip there.
Yep. No, I completely agree. Nailing application is huge. And I also agree with you that often the operational side is what gets you kind of bogged down in this area, because so often schools use different applications, different software, different CRM that don't talk to each other. And it's not easy to solve. And there is no one perfect product that can create that seamless experience. So there's a lot of back and forth between enrollment, advising, IT, marketing, trying to figure out how to put all those pieces together to create a seamless experience. But it is an effort that's worthy of attention and time, because that's where we lose a lot of people. They get frustrated. And
absolutely. And if you don't know how to do it, you can find someone externally to come in and help you. In addition to journey mapping, which you can definitely find experts in that field to help you with that, we've had an external vendor come in and do an assessment of one of our programs, including interviewing faculty, staff, students, for lack of a better term, doing secret shopping. There was nothing nefarious there. Everybody knew about it. We were all invested in it. We just wanted to get a different perspective of what that student's experience looks like. And we received a great report. And some of it was like, oh my gosh, we didn't even think about that. That's such an easy fix. So just taking these small steps. I mean, if you lead through a mentality of service experience first, these are things that anybody can do.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Hey there, it's Mallory, Chief Strategist of Enrollify. Higher ed is facing a leadership crisis. The demands on today's college and university leaders are skyrocketing, and talent is leaving the industry at an unprecedented rate. New leaders like you are emerging, but no one is getting the proper training to be successful. Well, Enrollify is here to change that. Our new course, Lessons in Leadership, taught by Dr. Carrie Phillips, will prepare you to be a confident, empathetic, and effective leader. From systems thinking to adaptive leadership, building culture to handling difficult decisions, this comprehensive online course is perfect for new and aspiring leaders. Don't wait. The course starts September 9th, and for a lucky group of 26 students, we have the option to add interactive sessions with Dr. Phillips for personalized guidance. Visit Enrollify.org to learn more.
If anything, I would probably put it number 1 on the list. It's that important.
It is that important.
Okay. Now we're getting to our third item, which is integrated marketing strategy across different channels. So what were some of the challenges and what are some of the successes in this particular area?
So the integrated marketing strategy really comes from just being very strategic and being very judicious with limited funding that everybody, for the most part, has in the public sector. And the thing is there's always been kind of the traditional marketing tactics that have been done. But this integrated marketing strategy actually dovetails with another one of the trends, which is really kind of about knowing your target audience and meeting them where they are. So you have to lead with that first. What are you trying to do? What outcomes are you trying to achieve? Who are you trying to reach and where are they? And then once you figure out those things, figure out your marketing strategy as to, how you're going to get out there and get your message in front of people. Really you should consider an integrated approach. And the reason I say that is because first and foremost, the cost of advertising in traditional spaces such as out of home, print, kind of those formats, television, oh my gosh, radio, absolutely insanely expensive. But even so with that, digital media has become, if you're talking about Google AdWords and display, retargeting and things like that, that has also become a very saturated marketplace, especially in higher education. And so cost for that competition to earn those top spots has become really expensive. When it comes to other things, there can be limitations, there could just be different things that can present challenges. And as much as I love social media, and we'll touch on that too, I think it's fantastic. Nothing's perfect. Social media can have limitations as an .edu organization, especially if you're trying to do an educational outreach around a general obligation bond, which we did, things of that nature. They can be difficult. And so you just need to have an integrated approach. And so again, meet your target audience where they are, but then think about other options that you can employ across the board to be as effective as you can. And that does include maybe a little bit of print. I'll kind of talk through the lens of our brand campaign. Yes, we have a little bit of print, but I'm going to just take you through the mindset of, okay, well, we have a commercial for our brand campaign. TV is just, I've never done it. I've never done broadcast television. It's just so expensive. And I feel like the return on investment and the trackable, tangible return on investment it's not there for me. So our next thing that we played with what's called OTT, over the top advertising. And so when you consider half of consumers probably have cut the cord on traditional cable and are now doing streaming devices, OTT is a fantastic option. The cost, it's like 50-60% cheaper than traditional cable. And you can stretch it a long way. You can geo-target by zip code. You can reach different platforms, including Spanish and other types of targeted platforms. So it's a great option. But now we're in 2024. So now as we're looking at re-upping our activities through our brand campaign, I don't know if I would do OTT. So this is strategic marketing. And here's why. Because over the last year or so, our efforts through YouTube have exploded. Our return on investment through YouTube has exploded. We are getting more traffic, more leads, generating more activity and more engagement through YouTube ads, which are very affordable. I mean, there is absolutely no comparison when you're talking about running commercials on cable versus YouTube advertising. And everybody's on YouTube. Think about your target audience. And so when you look at like the younger generations, the Gen Alpha, the Gen Zs, or whomever you're targeting to for whatever purposes, they are on YouTube. I have a 10-year-old. He doesn't even watch TV. Neither does friends. All they watch is YouTube. And I even had a few employees that are like, I only watch YouTube. So, you have to be agile. You have to understand the market, understand your audience, and create an integrated marketing strategy that traverses many different angles. That also includes, working with, if you have like a local newspaper, we have a local newspaper. We'll do a little bit of print depending on who we're targeting. But local newspapers have gotten pretty savvy because they knew that their industry had to evolve. And so a lot of them now also offer digital advertising packages. So if you don't have the staffing in-house to be able to effectively facilitate Google AdWords, display, retargeting type campaigns, a lot of times your local newspaper can do those services. And then you can also do what's called native advertising, because half of our shop is public affairs, public relations. You can write articles and you've seen them, they come across as sponsored content. So the whole point of an integrated marketing strategy is don't feel limited to doing what you've always done because we've always done it. Meet your audience where they are, be creative, and you can really stretch a conservative budget quite far if you really put some good effort into it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Funny story. So we used to advertise on cable, and then we switched to OTT for the same reasons because it's more cost effective, and it helped us to increase number of impressions and reach more people. And one day I get a call from a local motorcycle dealership, and it's a marketing person for that dealership, and they're like, "We love what you do on OTT." We want to do the same, and we love the frequency. How did you do it? So we started consulting local businesses on.
That's great.
It's kind of funny, but
that is
anyway, yeah, I completely agree with you that monitoring, tracking what's working, what's not working, and constantly shifting and not staying with the same marketing mix, because how people consume information is changing. We're still on number 3, and we still have a lot to go. So number 4 is shaping public perceptions. So can you tell us a little bit about, how do you shape those perceptions to benefit the college's image and your enrollment efforts?
Yeah, so I touched on this a little bit in the beginning. This is really about brand, right? And public image and how you shape that. And so, like I said, public perception, your brand is really what people think of when they think of you, how you make them feel, how they feel about an organization or a product. And the components of a brand primarily are your brand image, your messaging, your engagement with your key stakeholders, and then also reputation management. And there's a lot of different things that kind of go into brand management and effective branding. I think first and foremost, we put together an absolutely amazing brand campaign, and we had a really interesting thing happening at our particular college, and we capitalized on that. And what happened is, just for a quick backstory, before Dr. Nichols arrived about almost 8 years ago, this college was at a standstill. The buildings were over 50 years old. The college could not grow physically because there was nowhere to put more students. There was nowhere to add more programs. The buildings were falling apart. It was just, they were stuck. And when Dr. Nichols came here, he passed the first general obligation bond. This is something we do in Texas. As part of our funding is done through property taxes. And so we did a general obligation bond, and the first one passed for $162.5 million. And with that, he was able to rebuild, I would say, a good 40% of the campus. New, state-of-the-art, beautiful buildings. If you go to our website, com.edu, you can see it. In our virtual tour, you can see it. And we did that through a 10-year long-range facilities master plan. Once that happened, we were able to update our academic master plan and really plan for growth. It gave us the legs to take off. And then last year, I led a bond campaign outreach effort for a second general obligation bond for $250 million, totaling over $412 million. And so probably within the next 5 years, this entire campus will be rebuilt with absolutely incredible state-of-the-art facilities, programming that meets the needs of an exploding industrial community. We have 5 different industrial sectors across our area. And so this is just a haven of opportunity and growth. And so we were able to do that. So with that being said, when we launched our brand campaign, we wanted to refresh people's perception of College of the Mainland. So they love the college. It's been around forever. They love the college, but everybody knew College of the Mainland was that old, kind of falling apart college, and we weren't anymore. And so we wanted to do a refresh brand campaign to remind them, yes, you still love us, but now look, we're going somewhere. We're adding this incredible thing to the community. We're growing as a community together. And so we did a Be Bold, Fly High, Join the Flock campaign with a commercial using one of our current students or past student, and really focused on messaging that was really revolving around uplifting, inspiration, growth, collaboration, kind of we're in this together, we're going places type. spirit. And that not only had an advertising component, but it had a big time storytelling component. We started producing a tremendous amount of student stories, just sharing. We wanted to dovetail the refresh, the growth, kind of where we went from here to here of the college. It's the same story of our students, right? They just went from here to here. And we wanted to hear that story and remind people not only why they love College of Mainland, but what's coming for College of the Mainland and where we're going, what we have planned, and how we're going to help you grow and you go from here to here. And so we started telling stories. We did a lot of public relations. We did that commercial. And we started doing a community event called Flock the Block. Our mascot is the ducks. And they are all over campus. I talk to them daily. They're very sweet. We did a community event called Flock the Block, where it's just a huge community celebration. We had, I believe, the first time we did this event, we had around 1,500 community members show up. And we were like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And let's do this again. We did it again this year. We had over 2,000 people from the community show up. It had an Easter egg hunt. We had all the inflatables. We brought out all of our public service vehicles so they could, run the sirens and do all that stuff. And it was just such a great time. And so we combined all these different things together to put that out there. And the thing about branding and shaping public perception is it's a journey. It's not a sprint. There's no one singular thing you can do that people are gonna be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I now just think the world of this college. It's the drip, drip, drip all the time. And so always share information, always, be putting things out there, whether it's a student story, a faculty accolade, a student accolade, a college accolade. We actually are writing a press release right now because we just won an award for one of the top places to work. And so you need to constantly put all those good vibes, as I say, into the community. But with that being said, you also need to be in the community and be a part of the community. It's not a one-sided thing. This is a relationship. Like, we are part of the community. We depend on them and they depend on us. And so you also need to take real steps to make community engagement a significant part of your strategic plans as an institution, if it makes sense for your college. But I don't see how it wouldn't make sense for any college. But for us, it's a priority. And so this is just some of the things that we've done to help shape public perception.
Yeah. No, I love how you take your community on a journey of growth and renovation and exploration. I think that's so important, getting them involved and feel like they are part of your story. Absolutely. And you, as well as you're part of their story. So it makes me feel so good. Like,
I know. It is. It's
just
really
talking
touching
about this.
I haven't gone to one single one of these events where I haven't gotten a little teary-eyed because it means so much. When you finally, as marketers, we're always in the weeds, kind of in the thick of things, doing things. But then when you get to take a moment and come above water and actually see people who have been impacted positively, not just by you, but collectively, it's just, there's no feeling like it. It's indescribable. But I'm sure a lot of your listeners can definitely understand.
Yeah, if our listeners saw us right now, we're like a little bit tear-eyed, almost crying here, getting emotional.
I know.
I think that's why we work in higher education, because it does make us feel this way every day. Okay, that's great. So on to the next one, which is the personalization. So can you share some examples of why you think personalization is important, and how, or maybe what steps did you take to enhance personalization in your outreach efforts?
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, the thing is with personalization, I mean, it should just be a standard practice. The reality is, and let's look at our younger generations for a second. Okay, let's look at this Gen Z population. Since they have joined us on this wonderful earth, they have lived in a society of oversaturation and digital content and just content and ads and messages and information. I mean, just when I grew up in an analog world, and then we became a digital That it's not like that anymore. So it's just so much out there, and they've been sold to their entire lives. And we're not selling things, but I mean, we are a business. And so I think making an effort to prioritize personalization is the least you can do to show them that you've been thoughtful and that you care and that you're authentic, which is also a big part of our brand. And that's something that's a tremendous value proposition of this college is we are very authentic. And so being personalized is important because just like all of us receive messages all day, every day, and they're just kind of blanket messages that have been sent across, the spectrum. Every now and then, if someone stops and receives something that not only was personalized to them specifically, but as it relates to higher education, talks to them about things that matter to them, you don't really have to explain beyond that. I mean, that is the goal. And marketing, you can't just have this like rubber stamp mentality and think you're going to generate fantastic results. This day and age, consumers have very high expectations. This goes back to service experience. We have very high expectations. And if anything doesn't meet those expectations, we're bye on to the next, right? And so when it comes to a prospective student, for instance, coming and raising their hand on your website, I filled out a form off your nursing page, let's say. Well, if you were to send them just a general, message or multiple messages that wasn't anything specific to anything that they just told you they were interested in, think about like, how does that make them feel? And what do you think the odds are that they're going to be like, oh, they understand me. I want to move forward with this person. And these are just what I would consider common sense applications. If you're on a nursing webpage and there's a form and they want to raise their hand and say, I'm interested, then send them, if you have a CRM, set up your communication sequences that speaks to them about things that they have told you they're interested in. And so that's what I mean by personalization. Another aspect of that is accessible content. And so we live in Texas. We live in south of Houston, Texas. I believe that our student population, about 36 or so % of our student population identifies as Hispanic. Okay. And so when we're looking at marketing and recruiting, it is absolutely imperative that you understand your audience and understand what they need and make that information accessible. And so we are very strategic and thoughtful about creating content for the top part of the funnel of the recruiting process. From the time they first come to your website, they're looking around, maybe they want to download a brochure or something, that we provide that introductory information in Spanish. And when we talk about our Promise Scholarship, which provides students who graduate high school in our area a chance to come here for 2 years tuition free, you go to the Promise page on our website, there's a button where you can go and read that in Spanish. That's really important because what we understand is that, first of all, we're meeting people where they are. We're making information accessible, but then also we recognize and have learned just from having, building relationships and becoming educated, that it's not uncommon that a prospective student who identifies as Hispanic is going to want to take that information home. Let's say it's going back to the Gen Z example. Maybe they want to share that with their family, and maybe their family members' English is not their first language. And so it's just these little things that you can do to personalize and really think about your audience and meet them where they are. So that's what we mean by that.
I completely agree. And I think I see 2 additional benefits to personalization. The first one is if you deliver a message that speaks to a particular audience and they see that you understand them, you understand what they're going through, that helps you create trust. And that helps you show, like you mentioned, care, that you really care, to take the time to understand what they need and deliver on that need. And the second one, you mentioned this as well, but there is so many messages. And I think last time I saw something like every day a person sees like 10,000 commercials, ads a day, right? And they're so irrelevant sometimes. So how do you actually stand out, and how do you make students pay attention to you if it's not personalized, if it doesn't speak to them? It's some kind of general message that you think will apply to all, but really it doesn't. So I completely agree with you on that. And one follow-up question I have, which I see at my institution, is with so many different audiences that we serve, how do you scale your content production, and how are you able to create all those messages and deliver them at the right time to the right audience? Because, for my department, we identified 11 priority audiences, but there's a lot more than 11 that we need to speak to. But even to create messages for the whole life cycle of a particular student, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of thinking. And how do you do that? Any tips there?
It is a lot of work. Our enrollment management area, for instance, that does recruiting, that was just stood up about 4 years ago when I arrived, the same time I arrived. So before that, the college hadn't really done recruiting. And I was like, why are we doing recruiting? And so the thing is that it takes time when you have kind of new initiatives or kind of new outreach efforts that you want to do. It takes time to scale that. I think that you have to take a couple different approaches. I think you have kind of a long range strategic approach, which is you just kind of chip away, right? So you have your target audience segments that you just mentioned, maybe a 10, 11, whatever that is. You just need to kind of strategically pinpoint where you need to focus first and just chip away at that for just like kind of standardized content. So like building communication sequences in your CRM, stuff for the recruiters. You have to kind of figure out where you need to kind of fill the gaps first and then just go at it. You're not going to tackle it all at the same time. And you have to be realistic that these things can sometimes take many months, sometimes a couple of years. It just depends on what you're depth and breadth of what you're trying to do. But in terms of kind of year over year, once you kind of move past the foundational stuff, it really comes down to your strategic planning. I think the thing about community colleges is we serve such a diverse population of individuals, and we do so much as an institution. It was so much. I mean, not only, starting at high school and collegiate high school and dual credit, all the way up to new students. You got both first-time students, you got workforce students, you have CE students, you have lifelong learning students, you have high school equivalency students, you have ESL students. I think we'll be doing summer camps. It goes on and on and on. We can't do everything in a year. So that is why it is really important that you have a strategic plan. I mean, your college has a strategic plan, but then you as a department, as a division or whatever, however you're structured in marketing, PR, whatever, you need to have a strategic plan that aligns with the college's strategic plan. And I'll even go one step further, which is when I'm developing the strategic plan with my team for our department, I work very closely with the vice presidents or those over other areas that I feel like we are going to have the most kind of overlap and integration. You need to be heavily integrated. So I think, the first time I did this a few years ago, and since then, I always start by meeting with Dr. Brewer. She's our executive vice president of the Division of Academic and Student Affairs. She pretty much is over the whole college. But the point is you need to make sure that your goals and your objectives are aligned, that we're all working toward the same thing. And then once, you figure all that out, starting at the institutional level and then kind of at your division level, that gives you a roadmap for what you need to focus on for the year. So you're kind of having to do two things at the same time, which is not anything unusual for us colleges. We're usually doing like 14 things at the same time, but you got to be building that foundation, picking and then plugging in. And then at the same time, developing a strategic plan, whether it's yearly, biannually, or what have you, and then kind of focusing and delivering on those outputs. And so that's not a super detailed answer. It's a little bit higher level, but that's how I would approach it.
Right. That's pretty much how we approach this. But I was just hoping maybe you have some kind of magic idea that would make it all happen in a year. But I know it's a lot of work. So
if you discover that, please let me know. But
I will.
But I'm glad to know that you guys take the same approach. I think it's a smart approach, and making sure that the one thing I will say is that, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, we touch every single aspect of this college on a daily basis. And so as you're developing strategic plans or campaigns or whatever it is you're going to be doing, it's so important to not do it in a silo. It's so important that you do that collaboratively with your leadership colleagues on the leadership team, because then if you're not all working toward the same thing, you're preventing yourself from achieving amazing outcomes that you're totally capable of doing.
And that wraps up the first part of our conversation with Diane. We have covered some incredible insights, but there is still so much more to learn. So in part 2, we will dive into the understanding your audience, leveraging existing lead pipelines, experimenting with new technologies, and effectively using social media. We'll also explore how to make data-informed decisions. So make sure to tune in to the next episode to continue this deep dive into strategic enrollment marketing. I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it valuable. Let's keep this conversation going on LinkedIn at Maya Dimishkovich. I would love to hear your thoughts, questions, and suggestions for what you would like to see next on this podcast. Remember, by tuning in to The Hidden Gem, you are not just listening to a podcast. You are joining a movement of amplifying community colleges' success. Don't miss out. Subscribe to this podcast and notifications about our future episodes. Share it with your colleagues and college leaders to help make our colleges stand out. Together, let's make an impact. The Hidden Gem is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you will like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher education technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea and feature selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Jamie Hunt, Jenny Fowler, Eddie Francis, Brian Gross, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.